Happy Monday. It is March 2, 2026.
A big day on the calendar.
Right, yeah. And if you have looked at your calendar, or frankly, if you've just scrolled through your social feed for maybe 30 seconds this morning, you've probably noticed a shift.
The algorithm has definitely updated.
We are officially kicking off Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month.
Or, as the insiders call it, DDAM.
DDAM, exactly. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can practically hear the collective sigh from here.
Yeah, the phrase Awareness Month has a certain baggage.
It really does.
Yeah?
It usually implies a very specific, a very predictable cycle. You see a colorful ribbon on a profile picture, maybe you retweet a hashtag.
You feel vaguely supportive for about 4 seconds.
Right. And then we all just go back to business as usual on April 1st. It can feel, well, let's be honest, it can feel a little performative.
Performative is a polite way to put it, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of these campaigns historically are just about checking a box. It's about saying, hey, we see you, you exist, and then just leaving it at that. It's a very passive thing.
Passive, exactly. But stick with us, because today we are doing something entirely different. We aren't just looking at the slogans or the ribbons.
No, we are going right to the source.
We got our hands on the actual source code for this year's campaign. The mission of this deep dive is to unpack the official 2026 Communications Toolkit from the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities.
The NACDD.
Right. And honestly, this isn't a marketing flyer. Looking through this, it reads like a strategy guide for a total cultural overhaul.
It really does. I mean, I've been through a lot of these toolkits over the years, government PDFs, nonprofit guides, and usually they're just literal lists of tweets to copy and paste. But looking through this one with the press releases in English and Spanish, the proclamation templates, the visual strategies.
Oh, it's dense.
It's incredibly dense. The NACDD is doing something much more aggressive here. They aren't asking for simple awareness. They are trying to fundamentally shift the timeline of how we view disability in America.
And that shift is completely encapsulated in this year's theme. I actually had to read it twice because it seems so simple at first, but it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. The theme is, we're here,
Right.
then, now.
Always.
Down, always. Just 3 words.
It sounds like a greeting card at first glance, or maybe a movie tagline.
Yeah.
But when you start unpacking it, which is exactly what we're going to do today, it's actually a pretty complex historical and futuristic framework. It is a timeline argument.
An argument is the right word for it. The NACDD is arguing that we need to stop thinking about disability as this special interest topic that pops up occasionally.
Right.
And start recognizing a continuous presence. It's a move from a history of exclusion to a future where community living is just expected infrastructure.
Expected infrastructure. That is a fascinating way to frame human rights. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's deconstruct this theme, the then, now, always.
Let's do it.
The toolkit breaks this down with very specific language in the press release and the proclamation text. Let's start with the then. Right, so looking at the source material, then isn't just a vague reference to the past. It refers to a specific context of erasure. We are talking about a time when people with developmental disabilities were systematically hidden.
Yeah, the text uses some pretty heavy words here. It says they were segregated and excluded from community life.
Which is really the polite bureaucratic way of describing institutionalization.
Right.
For a huge chunk of American history, the solution, and I'm definitely using air quotes there, was isolation. If you had a developmental disability, you weren't in the classroom.
You weren't in the workplace.
You certainly weren't at the local coffee shop. You were away. You were entirely out of sight.
But the proclamation in the toolkit makes a very specific point here that I found really interesting. It connects back to the "we're here" part of the slogan. It says, although too many were once excluded, they have always been present.
That is the crucial distinction in this whole campaign. We often talk about the disability rights movement as if people with disabilities suddenly just appeared in the late 20th century.
Like they just materialized out of nowhere.
Right, like they just showed up one day. This campaign is saying, no, they were always there. They were part of the fabric of humanity, part of our families, even if society refused to look at them or acknowledge them.
So the then isn't admitting absence.
Exactly. It's admitting that the mainstream was wearing blinders.
It's correcting the historical record. We aren't introducing a new group of people. We are acknowledging neighbors who were literally locked out.
Precisely.
Which brings us to now. If then was about being hidden or managed by institutions, what is the specific definition of now in this 2026 campaign? because now can be a little vague in these types of things.
True, but in this toolkit, now is highly specific. It is about normalizing presence. The toolkit describes now as individuals living full lives, and they aren't vague about what a full life looks like either.
No, they list specifics right in the press release. They talk about working, building friendships, volunteering, parenting, participating in faith communities.
Did you notice what is missing from that list?
Let me look. Working, friendships, volunteering, parenting. Doesn't say receiving services.
Bingo. There is zero mention of being a patient, a client, or a recipient of care.
Wow.
Obviously, support services are real and necessary, but the now identity isn't defined by the help you need. It is defined by the role you play. Neighbors, employees, parents, congregants.
That makes total sense. It's shifting the identity from a person who creates a burden or needs help to a person who contributes to the economy and the social fabric.
Exactly. It's the shift from we allow you to be here out of charity to you are an integral part of this community's function. You are a neighbor, not just a statistic.
Okay, so we have the hidden past of then. We have the active participant of now. But the part that really felt like deep dive territory for me was always, this feels like the sci-fi part of the toolkit. It's the vision board.
It is the North Star of the whole campaign.
The toolkit defines always as a future where community living is protected, expected, and funded.
Those three words are heavy hitters. Protected, expected, funded.
Expected is the one that really sticks with me.
Why is that?
Well, protected sounds like laws, right? Funded sounds like money. But expected sounds cultural. It implies that inclusion isn't a surprise or a special accommodation you have to constantly fight for. It's just the default setting, like how you expect the traffic lights to work or you expect the sidewalk to be there.
Exactly. It implies a world where you don't have to ask for permission to belong.
Right.
But I do want to touch on funded, because that is the pragmatic backbone of this whole thing. The toolkit explicitly says that in this always future, community living is not viewed as a program, but as part of a whole life.
That is a massive conceptual shift. Because usually, when we look at government budgets, whether state or federal, support for disabilities is a line item. It's a program. And what do we know about programs?
Programs are optional. Programs are subject to the political winds. If the budget is tight, programs get cut. But a whole life isn't a program. You don't cut funding for living your life. So the always concept is arguing for a future where support systems are so integrated that they aren't seen as special favors. They're seen as essential infrastructure, like roads or electricity.
You don't debate whether the road should exist every single year. You just maintain it because society needs it to function.
Exactly.
That is a very powerful way to frame it. Not charity, but infrastructure. Now, we are visual creatures. We're deep diving into a text document here. But this toolkit acknowledges that most people are going to see this campaign on Instagram or TikTok.
Right, the social media strategy.
So it comes with this extensive image library. And I have to say, the way they use photos to prove this then and now concept is incredibly effective. It's not just random stock photography of people smiling.
Oh, absolutely not. The visual storytelling here is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the argument. They are curating history.
Let's talk about the then visual first. The toolkit includes a specific historical photo, and the file is literally labeled NACDD_CAPITAL.
This is a legendary moment in civil rights history. If you don't know it, you really need to.
For the listener who might not have the image right in front of them, let's paint the picture. It's a black and white photo. The date is March 12, 1990. We're looking at the steps of the U.S. Capitol building.
The People's House, the ultimate symbol of our democracy.
Right. And scattered up those massive stone steps are activists. But they aren't marching. They have abandoned their wheelchairs and their mobility devices at the bottom of the stairs, and they are physically crawling up the steps.
Dragging their bodies. It is visceral. This was known as the Capitol Crawl. They were protesting the delay in passing the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA.
Wow.
They were showing, with their own physical struggle, how the built world was literally designed to keep them out.
It's intense. When you look at it, it creates this immediate reaction of struggle, of fighting for the bare minimum right to just get in the door.
Exactly. It perfectly represents the then. The fight for basic civil rights protections. The fight to literally be seen. It is a photo of exclusion being challenged by sheer force of will. It's uncomfortable to look at, and it should be.
Now contrast that with the images provided for the Now campaign. The toolkit lists a few options for social media, but they feel like they are from a completely different universe.
They really do. And that contrast is exactly the point.
Take the coffee shop image. The description says it's three women sitting at a counter. One is wearing an orange baseball cap and a red plaid jacket. They are holding coffee cups. They're laughing. And that's it. It looks like nothing. It looks like a stock photo you'd see for a credit card ad or a sitcom promo.
And that is the victory.
It's the banality of it.
Precisely. If the capital crawl was about the struggle to exist, the coffee shop is about the joy of existing. It's mundane, it's normal. The fact that it looks like nothing is what makes it now. Now, the victory isn't always a massive protest. Sometimes the victory is just getting a latte with your friends and nobody staring at you.
There's another one that stood out to me because of the design details, the beach image. It describes a woman in a blue beach wheelchair on the sand.
Ah, yes. Did you catch the tech spec in the description for that one?
I did. It specifically mentioned wide gray wheels.
Wide gray wheels designed to move easily across sand. That detail really matters. Because in the then era, or even just 10 years ago, honestly, if you used a standard wheelchair, the beach was basically off limits.
Because thin wheels just sink right into the sand.
Right. You are stuck at the boardwalk watching everyone else have fun.
So you are physically segregated by the terrain itself.
But here, we have technology and design that allows for leisure. This isn't about mere survival. It's about enjoying a sunny day at the beach. It represents accessibility that allows for a full human experience, not just a bare minimum existence.
It's the difference between we let you survive and we want you to enjoy life.
Exactly.
And then there was one more image I want to hit, the 5K.
Yes, the lead from the front image.
It shows three men, two of them are in wheelchairs, one is kneeling, and they are at an outdoor race. And they're wearing green shirts that literally say, lead from the front.
Think about that progression for a second. We started with the capital crawl, dragging themselves up the stairs just to be heard, essentially begging the government to let them in.
Right.
And now we have lead from the front. It's a transition from pleading for rights to outright leadership, from the back of the line to the front of the pack.
It is a really powerful arc, from crawling to leading. And all of that is packed into just a handful of images in this toolkit. It shows that the awareness part isn't just about being nice to people. It's saying, look at this trajectory.
It's proof of concept. It's visual evidence that the now is vastly better than the then. But it also hints that we aren't done yet.
So we have the theme, we have the visuals. But this isn't just about looking at pictures and feeling inspired. The NECDD toolkit has a whole section labeled Relationship Building Effort. This seems to be where the rubber really meets the road.
This is the action phase. We talked earlier about how awareness months can be incredibly passive.
Yeah.
Well, this section is designed to break that passivity. It specifically targets week 2 or 3 of the month for this particular effort.
And it's not just telling people to tag a friend. The toolkit directs people to connect with key decision makers. We're talking local, state, and federal levels. This is lobbying, essentially.
It is citizen lobbying. It goes back to that always concept we discussed. The idea of services being protected, expected, and funded. You don't get funding by wishing for it on social media. You get it by policy.
Right.
So they're encouraging individuals and families to actually introduce themselves to their lawmakers, not just as constituents on a spreadsheet, but as people with very specific stories.
There's also this cool initiative called the Portrait Collection that launches in week 3.
I really love this idea.
The concept is inviting people to share their photo, but they have to answer one specific question about their future. They have to share their Folgers.
It's brilliant because it personalizes the policy. It's one thing for a state senator to read a white paper with statistics about developmental disabilities. It is a completely different thing to see a face and read a statement like, "My always is owning my own bakery." Or, "My always is living in the same neighborhood as my sister."
It forces the abstract into the concrete. It forces the lawmaker to see the human ambition behind the funding request.
Exactly. And speaking of concrete, we absolutely have to talk about the governor's proclamation template that's included in the kit.
Oh, right. The highly legal-sounding document. I have to admit, I usually skip over these because they feel like, I don't know, ceremonial fluff.
Do not skip this one. The language in here is deeply strategic. There is a clause that says, whereas community living is about more than services or programs, it is about belonging, choice, independence, and the opportunity to live a whole life.
Opportunity to live a whole life. I mean, that sounds nice, but does it actually have any teeth?
It's a trap in the best possible way.
A trap.
Think about it. If you get a governor to sign that, to officially proclaim that community living is about independence and choice, you now have a tool. You can go back to that administration later when they try to cut a budget or restrict housing options and say, hey, You sign this.
Oh.
You agreed on paper that this is about independence. This new policy you're proposing cuts independence. You are contradicting your own proclamation.
I see. So it's not just a nice certificate to hang on the wall, it's a commitment device.
Yeah, it is forcing official recognition of values.
Yeah.
That is how you build the always. You get the values on paper, signed by the leadership, and then you hold them to it. It transforms a purely ceremonial gesture into an actual policy lever.
That is deceptively smart.
Yeah.
You know, as we look at all these pieces, the history, the photos, the political action, it all seems to stem from a core philosophy. And I think Jill Jacobs, the executive director of the NATDD, sums it up best in the press release.
Yes, her quote really anchors the entire campaign.
She says, quote, "People with intellectual and developmental disabilities have always been here, even when systems kept them out of sight."
That phrase, even when systems kept them out of sight, it places the blame exactly where it belongs. The people were there, they weren't hiding. The systems failed to see them. The systems were actively designed for exclusion. It is a very direct challenge to the status quo.
And she goes on to say, this month is not about awareness as a one-time event.
Which brings us full circle. If we are talking about an always, we cannot have a month mentality. You can't be inclusive in March and exclusive in April. You can't be aware on Monday and indifferent on Tuesday.
That is a great point. And speaking of inclusivity, I noticed something else in the toolkit that speaks to who is actually included in this we. The campaign is fully bilingual.
Yes, it is.
There are specific press releases written in Spanish. The slogan isn't just translated as a footnote at the bottom. It is front and center. Estamos aquí, antes ahora, siempre.
That is so important. Because when we say we're here, we have to critically ask who we is. Disability intersects with every race, every class, every language. By ensuring the campaign is fully bilingual from the jump, not as an afterthought, not as a quick Google Translate attachment.
Right.
It broadens the scope of that we. It recognizes that the experience of disability cuts across language and culture entirely.
Estamos aquí. We are here. It is a declaration of existence.
And permanence.
So we have unpacked the toolkit. We have gone from the stone steps of the Capitol in 1990 to the beach wheelchair of 2026. We've moved from segregation to leading from the front. We've seen how a boring photo of a coffee shop can actually be a revolutionary act.
It is quite a journey for a set of PDF documents.
It really is. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to chew on. We have talked a lot about this always, this future where community living is expected and funded.
Right, the ultimate goal.
But we aren't there yet. We are in the now.
That is true. And that raises the big question for everyone listening. If the always is a future where inclusion is just infrastructure, like we said earlier,
Yeah.
what are we building today to make that happen?
Oh, that is the question.
Because the always doesn't just spontaneously appear. It isn't inevitable. It is built on the decisions we make in the now. So if you believe in that future, what is your role in funding it, protecting it, or expecting it today?
It's not just about liking a photo of a coffee shop on Instagram. It is about ensuring that the coffee shop in your neighborhood is actually accessible. It's about checking if the hiring practices at your company are inclusive. It's about knowing if your local laws support that independence.
Exactly. We are all the architects of the always.
Well, on that note, we are going to sign off. We really hope this deep dive gave you a different perspective on that ribbon or that hashtag you might see on your feed today. Take a look at your own community through the lens of then, now, and always. You might be surprised at what you see, and maybe more importantly, what you don't see. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.